Welcome to another episode of the Learneezee Cast. I am Rico Lazo, one of the co-hosts, joined by Bastien, our other co-host. Pat, how are you today?
I'm good, Rico. How are you?
I'm doing well. I have to say that the weather in Colombia is always warm and beautiful. Sometimes I almost wish I had colder weather. And I know you guys in Germany are getting past the cold weather.
Yeah, at this point, it's very warm and lovely right now. I have my window open, and you can see I'm getting a little bit red, so even I can tan a little bit. Yeah, it's a great time to be in Freiburg.
One of our segments, of course, is just what's on your mind. I do notice an Ikigai book on your windowsill there, but I was curious, what's been on your mind?
Thank you to my coworker and friend Daniel Noto for lending me this book. I'm slowly getting through it. Hopefully, through my vacation, I'll finish it. But yeah, I mean, it really brought to the forefront this idea of, what is success in life? This concept of Ikigai is one that I was not familiar with until I saw your mini video on it on Instagram. So you can elaborate even better than I can, Rico, on what it is.
Ikigai is a Japanese concept to really help people find, I think, a deeper purpose and meaning in life. Really talking about these different spheres of what you're good at, what you love, what the world needs, and what you can get paid for. Certainly we need to be able to not just survive, but to thrive. And the way you do that is by finding the convergence among those four areas in life. A very interesting concept, and also just the graphical nature of seeing the Ikigai diagram, I think for me was very enlightening. I'm a very visual learner, a visual person, and to see just one infographic or visual really paints a nice way to think about what's your purpose in life or what should you be working on.
Yeah, I love it because the Venn diagram gives you the focus, and you can see in the center, the idea of reaching your Ikigai is more about like you're finding your purpose in life, and that's way beyond just making money or just getting things done for society. It's something that combines all of these things together, which is an ultimate goal. That's helped me to think about, okay, let me not just define my success on whether or not I have a well-paying job, but where am I really reaching my Ikigai, where all of the things that I love to do and what society needs, and maybe even the financial part, all of these things meet together, and that should be a great life goal. And the idea is it helps you sustain a longer life, a more fulfilling life, right? But of course, the idea would also dovetail into another thing that's been on my mind, the AI revolution. How can you use artificial intelligence to help you reach your full potential, And then I saw something from Sal Khan about how he is going to, basically he's developing AI's capabilities into his Khan Academy so that students who go to Khan Academy will have their own personal tutors so that they can have full attainment of academic excellence, because they'll have someone meaning an AI that was personally calibrated to their needs. And I find that amazing. I don't go by these AI pessimists. I like to think about positivity first in this case. And I love how Sal Khan found a real purpose that could help billions of people through AI. And I know you're working on a course, Rico, that's coming out soon.
Well, I just wanted to comment that I agree with you wholeheartedly. I think that people who are sort of chicken little, the sky is falling, AI is going to bring our demise, I think that's a bit short-sighted. I think your specific example of Sal Khan with Khan Academy really embracing this as a measure to meet the needs of all students. I think there are very few tools or technologies out there that have shown to be able to do that effectively. And I think AI is really just tip of the iceberg of what we can do with it for everybody to learn how to learn things more easily. I mean, I love just getting into ChatGPT and taking a complex topic and say, ChatGPT, explain this to me like I'm 5 years old. We're all still learning how to utilize this technology, but it's really, I think it's a fantastic technology. And I would just encourage anybody listening to this podcast, this video cast, if you haven't given it a chance, just get out there and try it out. I think you'll be amazed at the different applications that it can be used for, both in a professional sense and in a personal sense.
Yeah, that's wonderful, Rico. Yeah, and the hope is that this AI revolution will connect well with the new push towards environmental, social, and governance projects that corporations are looking to finally, take seriously now, and avoid the dangers that come with basically using these topics, basically what they call to greenwash their companies, and maybe AI can help them really see things that are hard to measure in a more clear way, and really revolutionize the capabilities of tracking their ESG statistics, and then hopefully then making real change for our society instead of kind of just doing what they can to whitewash some of the issues they have in areas like equity, diversity, and inclusion, these kinds of topics. Everybody gets frustrated by those topics because they feel like they're so qualitatively on the surface, but there's nothing real going on to really track what's going on with those people who are affected by these issues,
And we live in an information age where we have a deluge of information. It's hard to sift through all the information we have. And I think one of the powers of AI is really being able to help us understand the different data points and to be able to provide some analysis and to really dig deeper, especially around important issues that you brought to the forefront. I do agree. I think that this tool, this technology is not something to be feared, but to be embraced as long as there is some sort of regulation and governance around, using it in positive ways. But overall, I think it's a fantastic tool.
Anything on your mind, Rico, at this point?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that a couple of things in my mind, just talking about our guests. We had a guest on a couple episodes ago, Francesca Carlin, a life coach, and she recommended a book, Designing Your Life, which I've been working through and reading, and in fact, actually using ChatGPT to help me craft some of my answers to activities in the book. But I've been really intrigued by the field of life coaching, because I think that in talking about Ikigai and talking about purpose, sometimes it can be challenging to know if you're on the right track. And so I think what's nice about life coaching is that you can speak to somebody that can really help you uncover things that you haven't previously considered. And I think what the biggest misconception about life coaching is that you have this person telling you what to do, when in fact it's really about working with people and having them understand that they already have the answers within, that maybe just through powerful questioning you can uncover what you truly need to do, and then on some levels maybe having a bit of an accountability partner to help you identify goals and then hold you to actions that will help you achieve those goals. So something I'm looking into both in my personal life as well as maybe pursuing a life coach certification. So I'll be sharing that with you and the audience if I decide to go down that route.
Yeah. Whatever happens, definitely share it with us, and we'll be 100% behind you, Rico. Because you're obviously a great teacher, and I think you'll make a wonderful coach, especially a life coach.
Well, just speaking about guests, I'm very excited for today's guest, because this is a topic that, if you're not aware of topics, how do you even know what to do? So I think bringing awareness to issues is fantastic. So let's go ahead and go to our Experts Corner. Welcome to another interview on the Learneezee Cast. I am Rico Lazo, the co-host, joined by Patrick Bastien, co-host of our show, the Learneezee Cast. And this is another segment where we interview experts. And it's my pleasure to introduce Ilaria de Altin, a seasoned problem solver and climate protection advocate with over 20 years of experience at the local level. She's an individual who thrives on challenges and possesses an innate curiosity for finding innovative solutions. In addition to her professional endeavors, Ilaria excels in designing, facilitating, and moderating workshops, seminars, and capacity building activities. Her commitment extends beyond the realm of climate protection, as she actively participates in political initiatives and passionately fights for the rights to vote for all residents in the European Union, regardless of their passport. Welcome to the Learneezee Cast, Ilaria. How are you today?
Hello. Thank you, Rico. Thank you, Patrick. I'm fine. How are you?
Doing well. The weather's great here in Colombia, nice and warm as always.
Yeah, it's great here in Freiburg too, Ilaria.
Finally, it's sunny here as well. Yes.
I had to open the window just to get some fresh air.
Nice change of pace for you guys, I suppose. Well, let's go ahead and jump right into the questions. As our video cast really speaks to issues concerning expats and people living in a second or third country, we like to know more about the guest's background. So, Ilaria, would you mind telling us where you're from originally and what languages you speak?
I'm Italian. Italian is my mother tongue, and I speak English, Spanish, German, and a little bit of French. I've been living in Italy most of my life, but then I moved also to Scotland, to England. I studied in England with the Erasmus scholarship, and then I moved to Germany without speaking any German. And I thought I would stay here for a couple of months, and it's been 23 years now.
Wow.
Yes.
Respect, yeah.
Well, life is like this. Sometimes you cannot plan things.
So, as a polyglot, this is just sort of just off the cuff here, but how do you find German as a language? Is it difficult to learn? That's what everybody says in English, that German is a difficult language. Grammatically, it can be tough, but what is your experience over these years learning and mastering German?
It is difficult. It's not just a legend. Above all, if you start learning it like me as an adult, it is a difficult language. I do love it. I like it. That's a benefit. But it has a complicated grammar, and it is beneficial to learning when you're very young if you can. But it's not impossible, as you see. I have been able to get into it and master it.
Yeah, I always enjoy meeting polyglots, people who are able to, switch from one language to another with ease.
It is a great thing, I have to say. It is. I still live it as a privilege, and when I see my children who grew up with two languages, I think this is a present we gave them, the possibility to learn two languages from the beginning. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Absolutely. It is one of those real gifts to be able to be completely fluent or just speak more than one language fluently. Our first question regarding the content of today's show is that, well, one, we know you're an expert in climate protection strategies, but the reason we're here interviewing today is to learn more about your interest in voter rights. Can you tell us about how your interest in this topic came about?
Well, I love democracy. I think it is a privilege also to live in a democracy, and democracy is something you have to protect. You have to live with your experience. And I wasn't thinking about it a lot when I moved here, also because, as I say, I wanted to stay only a couple of months, and then it was a year, and then it was almost 2, and I got a letter saying I was invited to vote. And I was like, what do you mean? I'm Italian. I don't even speak German very much yet, so how comes I can vote? And so I found out that EU citizens can vote at local level in other European countries. They do have this right. And my interest in local politics in the city I was living in, well, it just opened up. Because I thought, if I can vote, I want to vote, and then I want to understand what is going on in the city. And my perception of the place I was living in changed completely, because I thought, I'm part of it, because I have a say, because my voice and my thoughts are important. And that's where I started getting into the topic more and more.
Okay, so that's amazing, Ilaria. So you weren't informed either until you got the letter from the government that you could do this at all, right? And that's how it happens for most of us who are living abroad, if at all, that we have these rights that we can't utilize, right? And I think we saw online, it said about 14 out of 27 countries in the European Union allow you to vote, even though you're not a citizen of the country. Is there anything you have to do as a worker or as a resident to gain those rights from what you're aware
So
of?
in all of the EU countries, you can vote at local level if you have a EU citizenship. Whereas if you don't, so if you have a passport of a non-EU country and you are a resident,
Yeah, in my case, like I'm American, and
exactly,
I
then
would.
you can't vote here. And you can live here as long as you like, contribute to society in any possible way, pay taxes, and that's it. You can't vote. So you don't have your democratic rights. In 14 countries in the EU, even you could vote.
Yes.
But there are other countries, and even though there are directives of the EU that says that this should be given, people with other passports don't have the right to vote. And so you ask, what do you need to do?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as EU residents, you just need to live here for 3 months. As a non-EU resident for the countries which allow you to vote, it really depends. Every country has decided in a different way. In some countries, you just need to be there for a year. In other countries, up to 8 years.
So it's very different from country to country, but it's rare in the sense of 50%, and it's not in every part of the country. It could be just a certain city. I heard that as well, right? That certain cities might allow you to vote, but other districts in that particular country may not. Is that possible too?
No, normally there are national laws that regulate these things. So if you are in a country that allows you to vote, then you can vote in every local authority.
Okay.
But in every country, there are different regulations indeed. For example, in Spain, people coming from Latin America, so countries where there are direct agreements between Spain and the other countries, then they can vote. But people coming from other countries outside of the EU, then they cannot vote. So in every country, it's a little bit different. And in Germany, you can't vote if you don't have a EU passport, no matter how long you stay here.
So, and then that brings us to the movement that you're part of. Could you elaborate for us how you got into the movement to allow all residents to vote here in Germany, and the name of the organization and everything? That would be great.
This organization based here in Freiburg is called Freiburg Wahlkreis 100%, which in German means Freiburg voting district 100%. And it existed already when I was here for a couple of years or something. The goal they have is to change the German law and allow voting rights to all residents. Under which conditions? Well, this is something that the government has to decide, of course, but this organization makes pressure and lobby and political activities in order to inform the population, because lots of people don't know it here. You could ask, Patrick, you could ask your neighbors, people who know you very well, if they know whether you can vote or not. And
that
you
would
will
be
be
a good
surprised. Quiz. You'll be surprised how many people first never thought about it.
Of course
Second,
not.
Don't know. They have no idea. So the first step is also to inform people, and then inform also immigrants who are living here and just accept it that they don't have voting rights, and tell them, why don't we do something about it?
So you mentioned in Germany the right does not exist for non-EU passport holders, but are there countries in the EU that do allow non-EU passport holders to vote at the local level?
Yes, as I say, there are 14 countries, for example, Denmark, Finland, Ireland, I have it written down because I always forget, Sweden, Belgium, as I say, Spain with the special deals depending on the countries. But yeah, there are 14 countries of the 26 in the EU that do allow it.
And is this voting at the local level but not in national elections, or is this for all voting rights?
Well, that's also different. The majority of these 14 countries, they only allow it at local level, but there are also countries, not in the EU, there are countries in other parts of the world that do allow everybody to vote. For example, I think it's Chile. But now I don't have all of the data of all of the countries and all of the regulations. The important thing for me is that in those countries where everybody can vote, democracy is actually working better. Some people say, oh, but if everybody can vote, then this is going to be destabilizing for the country. And that is absolutely not the case. And I think this is one of the most important aspects to focus on.
That's a great point, because I remember in researching a little bit and talking to you, I think you mentioned something maybe around this point that maybe 15% of people who are just residents but not EU citizens are basically disenfranchised, because they live here in Germany. In my mindset, they live here, and they pay taxes, but they have no right to vote for any representatives. And they make up about 15% of the population, which is very significant, right?
Yes.
For me, when you compare it to parties in Germany like Alternative für Deutschland, that regularly hits about 10 to 12% of the vote. So it could be a counterbalance to the far right, in a sense, if you allowed residents to vote. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, but if residents could vote, they would not all vote the same.
Of course, yeah.
And that is also one of the very important things. These people, it's, as you say, about 15% of the German population. By the way, there are places where it's much more than that. I think in Vienna, like 30% or 35% of the adult population cannot vote because they don't have the Austrian or EU pass. So yes, it's a lot. It's a lot of people who don't have a voice. One of the arguments that some people have against allowing residents with other passports to vote is that they would destabilize the system because they all vote the same. And this is such a close-minded way to see things, because just like with every other part of the population, these people come from all over the places and have completely different attitudes and thoughts and political beliefs. And we at Voting Rights 100% wanted to show it. And so we started many years ago to organize symbolic elections, inviting people who do not have the right to vote the same candidates, only symbolically, but vote the same candidates that all of the people who have the right to vote can vote for. And then we checked what happened. And the results were very interesting. Besides one particular party, which you mentioned before, they didn't get a lot of votes. But for the other parties, they all got some votes. And in some cases, it was the symbolic results were almost mirroring what the rest of society was voting. And what we do at the end is we take all these symbolic votes and we give them symbolically to the people, to the politicians who would have received them if their voters would have been allowed to vote.
It's very interesting to see your work because, as Patrick was alluding to, people are paying taxes and yet not having the right to vote. But there's a long history, and I don't want to call it tradition, but a long history of not allowing people to vote. We spoke earlier in a previous call about the women's suffragist movement, in which women, of course, were participating in society in some regards, but not able to vote in U.S. history and around the world as well as in the U.S., African Americans not possessing the right to vote. And it's interesting to think that people should be paying taxes, but be withheld from the right of voting. And so in your work, you've talked a lot about bringing awareness to people. People may not even be aware of this being an issue. What have you found to be some of the most important ways to really make change? You spoke about these symbolic votes, but are there other things that you have seen that have also made a big impact in changing maybe mentalities towards who should be allowed to vote?
Well, indeed, I think that the best thing is to get in touch with the people and speak with them. What we do when we organize symbolic elections, we do campaign like the other parties. Only we're not a party, but we do campaign in Freiburg. And by the way, in the last 2 times we organized this, we were also working with other cities in Germany and organizing symbolic elections also in other cities. And we produce posters, we produce material like the other parties, and we organize info points in the city center where we meet people. And lots of people come to us and ask, what party are you? And then we have the possibility to explain, and we ask people, do you think that the right to vote is a basic vote that should be given to every person? And lots of people go like, yeah, of course. And what is a person then? What is making a person? Is it's his or her passport, or is the fact that this person is here? By the way, we mention a lot of times this the topic of paying taxes, but it's not only that. Even if you're not paying taxes, you do have a basic right to vote as a person, and you are denied that if you have the wrong passport, basically. And then when we are in town with these info points, we try to spot the people who do not have the right passport, and we ask them, so do you vote? And they go, no, we're not interested because we cannot vote. And say, well, here you can vote. Come to us, you can vote.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And that is also, that's a very lots of nice possibilities to speak with people.
And I saw via LinkedIn that you also went to Berlin with the organization. Was that also part of the activism there to speak to the politicians directly about the results of the symbolic vote and so on?
That's what we try to do. You're right, because the point is that even if here at the local level, lots of people do agree with us, even the Lord Mayor of Freiburg do agree with us. In April, the city council signed our city's declaration saying that they do want all the people living in Freiburg having the right to vote, but they don't have the power to change the law.
Exactly.
That power is in Berlin. And so when we gave the votes to Chantal Kopf, she is our local politician, she's in parliament, but she's from Freiburg. And we asked her to invite us in Berlin, and she did. So we went there with a delegation. Is this going to change? We don't know. For these things, you really need to have a lot of patience and try again and again and again. But yes, we do have to bring the voices from the cities to the national level.
And so you mentioned that other countries have perhaps maybe you haven't said this, but it seems that other countries maybe have served as models to follow. So are you, as an organization, working with other organizations internationally to learn best practices or a way to sort of, imitate their successes, if you will, by enacting or doing similar types of outreach?
We do coordinate from here, co-coordinate a European network, but we are networking mostly, I have to say, with the countries where the situation is like in Germany, like France and Italy and Austria and Belgium, where people are still fighting to have their right recognized. And then, of course, we do show the good examples. We do invite people there to look at what happens in countries where people can vote. And we do show that as soon as people can vote, they do participate more. They feel part of society at a different level.
I think it's an interesting topic because, as a U.S. citizen, I'm living abroad in Colombia. I don't have any voting rights here. But even in the U.S., there seems to be a lot of resistance just in general of people being encouraged to vote, sort of voter suppression, even having an electoral college. The whole right of what one should have in terms of voting it seems just to be very different than how things operate in the EU. So it's really encouraging to hear that there are places in the world that are looking to really make voting a human right, regardless of if you're paying taxes, regardless if you're a citizen or not. So that's really very eye-opening for me personally.
But the city of New York is a very good example for us as well, because they independently from the state decided to grant voting rights to all the citizens. And of course they're fighting for it, but they took the initiative as a city. So there is also a movement in that sense in the US.
Yeah, I have much respect for my New Yorkers for fighting
Yeah.
for their rights. There's so many internationals that I can understand why they want to have a say in what goes on in the city. And I think let's hope that fight continues. Like you said, it's a long road. And I guess we're getting closer to the end of our interview. So we want to also ask you, Ilaria, how can people get involved in the movement with you here in Freiburg, and maybe if they want to, in their local area, what would you recommend? Yeah.
Well, I recommend them to Google. In their local areas, there are certainly other organizations
Mm.
fighting for these topics. We have a Facebook page and an Instagram page, and there is also a Facebook and an Instagram page of the European network. It's called We Vote, Voting Rights for All Residents. It's spelled VRAR. It's a European network. So if you go on the Facebook or the Instagram sites, then you will find all of the organizations part of it and the links to them.
Great.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Ilaria. We will definitely put that into the show notes and into the description of our video cast online. Patrick, do you have any last questions you wanted to ask?
No, it's been a pleasure. I really appreciate you coming onto our podcast, Ilaria. From just meeting up spontaneously at a Karshot's House event, and I really appreciate it because I've learned a lot too from this interaction. And now I know when I get one of these letters from Wahlkreis 100, I will not ignore it. I don't think I ignored it before.
I was saying, Patrick, if you want, it's very easy for you because we are here in Freiburg, so you're very welcome if you want to receive more information.
I just want to make sure I vote this time. 100%.
Yes, it's going to be, the next opportunity is in May next year. We will organize again some symbolic elections.
Cool. Then see, it's great. Then we all know all of my expat friends here in
I will be pleased to see you there, and you can talk to all of your friends because that's how it goes from mouth to mouth.
Well, thank you, Ilaria, so much for your time today. We really appreciate you coming on to the show and really informing not just us, but our audience about the work you're doing. And we'll definitely put into the show notes, as I mentioned earlier, information so those who are listening that want to get involved can.
Thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me and for being interested in this topic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
What an exciting interview. I learned so much about this notion of being able to vote without necessarily being a citizen. I wish that were the case everywhere in the world, but I think Ilaria did a great job of just really bringing awareness to this important issue that if you don't have the right to vote because you don't have the citizenship, then maybe you can get involved locally to bring this issue to light and maybe work on a way that can usher in the right to vote. But a very, very fascinating interview.
Yeah, I'm glad that she put me on blast. Next year, I have to remember in May, it will be my chance to symbolically vote for my representatives here in Freiburg. And I hope folks in New York take advantage of it too, now that we know that it's possible for residents in New York, even though they're not citizens, to also participate in the vote.
As my grandfather used to say, tu voto es tu voz, your vote is your voice. And so I encourage anybody who has the right to vote, certainly exercise that vote. And if you don't have the right to vote, consider looking into how you can perhaps organize people to have that come to bear. That brings us to the end of our show. Well, thank you for listening and keep learning easy. Until next time.